Hello, welcome in. My name is Sarah. I'm a mindset mastery coach, transformational hypnotherapist, and attachment style specialist. In today's video, we're talking about the avoidant adaptation. And I want to go into this a little bit more about this adaptation because avoidance gets so much hate. And I was in a training this weekend, an attachment style training, and somebody brought that up. And I was so happy that they did because there's so much hate in social media right now. Maybe not quite as much on YouTube, but over on other social media channels like TikTok and Instagram, I just see like the hate for the avoidance. It is an adaptation, like any of the insecure attachment styles. It's an adaptation to what transpired in somebody's childhood. And it's a way in which their nervous system is basically dealing with what happened in the best way that they know possible. So, we're going to talk about the avoidant adaptation here and hopefully just give you more and more understanding, especially for my avoidant. I have a lot of avoidant clients, and I also have people that are more anxiously attached that are coming in with avoidant partners and loved ones. And just for all of us just to understand each other better, whether it's a relationship or friendship or family member, so that we could really have some compassion for these different adaptation styles that evolved based on what happened, what transpired in our childhood, which was often extremely painful. If you'd like a personal one-on-one session, mindset mastery session, transformational hypnotherapy session, there's a link. Okay, so we're talking about the avoidant adaptation. I've had to kind of piece together two videos because I did a whole 20-minute video and the sound stopped working about 3 minutes in. So I'm doing attempt number 2, the trials and tribulations of being a vlogger. Okay, the avoidant adaptation style. So I want to really stress that all of these adaptation styles, all of these secure adaptation styles evolved in order for that child to survive. This is about survival. This is not about, that person wanting to mistreat you or being an asshole or any of those things. This is about that child needing to survive in the only way that they knew how. And, creating, yes, dysfunction in the nervous system and fight or flight, and this person adapting to their environment and adapting to their needs, either being intermittently reinforced, never met at all, or dealing with some sort of emotional abandonment or neglect from the parents. And there's so many other things: chaos, strife, conflict, all of those things, okay? So one of the things that the parent of the avoidant would have conveyed is that you need to self-soothe. In other words, they may have left the child crying. There's something called a signal cry, right, that we can do as adults. We can also do as children. That could actually be a cry from the child, like, I need something. They need their diaper changed. They're hungry. They are belly aches. They have a headache. They're tired. They want you to play with them. They're asking for connection. And oftentimes these signal cries are just entirely missed by the parent, or caretaker of the avoidant. And so, yeah, obviously that avoidant child learns over time, my needs are not important and my needs are just going to be relegated to they're unimportant. They don't matter. There's actually been studies done where they will take a parent and a child, and that parent will turn away like this. And actually, I want you guys to kind of notice maybe how that feels. I'm going to turn away for a second, and I want you to notice how that feels. I'm just going to turn back now. And something that simple can really ping our attachment system. So some of you may have felt relief at me turning away if you lean avoidant. If you lean anxious, you may have felt really anxious and like, did I do something wrong? Oh my gosh, she doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Oh my gosh, I'm bad. I'm unworthy. And then if you're disorganized, you could have, you could go either one of those ways. But it's very interesting to note, how we respond to something like that. And a child would respond, like you think of it like a mother rocking a child or a father rocking a child, and then making that eye contact. That's so important. And then, that's nourishment. That's emotional nourishment for the child, to be held, to be swaddled, like that, to be cradled and to have eye contact. And if that parent doesn't make the necessary eye contact often enough, or if they look away, or they're on their phone, or they're not connecting with their child in that way, that child can, end up with an avoidant adaptation style. So think about that for a second. If that made you feel a certain way, maybe you felt nothing at all, but if that made you feel a certain way when I turned away and I took my attention away from you when it's supposed to be on you, then just notice how that felt and imagine what that might feel like for a child. my avoidant loves out there, your needs were met with aversion or hostility often, or they just weren't met at all. They were just like, the parent was ambivalent. Like, you have needs, take care of them yourself. You're sad, you're upset, someone's bullying you, you got a boo-boo, go take care of it yourself. And that child over time learns, I can't rely on this parent. And what's really wild is that there's other studies that show that over time, that child will actually just shut down. If they're asking, like even within a couple minutes time, if that child will cry, and if that parent ignores that child or that caretaker ignores that child, after a certain amount of time, that child will stop crying, they'll just shut down, they'll turn everything off. Their attachment system has been pinged and they're going into avoidance. And it's being mirrored to them by their caretaker. So oftentimes the parent or caretaker of an avoidant adult or avoidant child was avoidant themselves. So it's sort of like the avoidant child thinks, well, if I didn't get contact when I wanted it, then I don't even know I'm missing it. Like, I asked for it, I didn't get it over and over and over, and so I just stop. And you'll see oftentimes a lot of avoidance can come from affluent households where both mom and dad worked. They may have traveled a lot, mom and dad weren't home a lot, maybe they were taken care of by nannies, or they were put in daycare early on. And this doesn't always create avoidance, by the way. There's a lot more to it than this, but I'm just throwing out examples. And that child sort of missed those formative connection years with the parent or caretaker. Or maybe that mom was unable to nurse the child, right? That can create a disconnect. Like, all of these things can create like incredible disconnects for the avoidant and create the avoidant attachment style. When they want to get close to somebody, when they have that desire or that need, then they'll sort of think like, wait, I better not, because, and then that's their attachment system will ping and be like, you better not, because remember what happened when you tried to get close to someone in the past. Remember what happened when you asked for your needs to be met by your mom or your dad. And the child's going to be like, or the adult is going to be like, yeah. So their implicit memories of their needs not being met will be stored away somewhere. Even if they're repressing or suppressing their needs, they're still there. They're going to come out, and then oftentimes they'll just do it themselves. You'll see an avoidant just do it themselves and then sort of end up resentful that you're not doing anything for them, even though you've asked and you've tried. Let me give you another, like a real life example. My husband opened a business last year, and he wanted his dad to be proud of him. His dad was never going to show it. His dad's also pretty avoidant. The men in that family run pretty avoidant. And so he was basically asking for something he was never going to receive. And I could see this playing out as him, the little boy, asking for his dad to please just see me, please just acknowledge me. And what's interesting about that is oftentimes for avoidance, their goals, that when they met goals like sports goals, or they got good grades or something like that, those were acknowledged. Their accomplishments, their merits were acknowledged. It's often that just who they were wasn't really acknowledged. So I often wonder if they even got the chance to really create a personality, right? Because if your needs aren't being met and you're not expressing those needs, then really who are you? That's sort of what differentiates us from animals, is our ability to clearly express our needs to each other and have them met and be seen. Animals, and we're guessing, we're hoping we're getting it right. Oh my God, we're hoping, we're praying we get it right. But with people, we can actually express that and communicate that. So anyway, as far as I know, his dad never really acknowledged it, that he did anything great. He's like, yeah, well, his dad would go into like, well, this is all the things. Why would you do that when you had, a reliable job? Like, why would you give that up? Instead of just acknowledging and seeing him and actually like, way to go, way to go, Jim. Like, dad did not do that. So that was interesting. They also, like an avoidant, will also think, I better not ask because I'll just get rejected or told no if I do. So you'll often see the avoidant like start a sentence and maybe ask for something and then just kind of withhold or go, never mind, right? You'll also see an anxious person do that, but they're doing it for different reasons. They're doing it out of codependency and they're kind of playing a game. The avoidant is just doing it because they're remembering those implicit memories that say, you know what, if I do this, my needs aren't going to get met. I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to get told no. And that's painful. And they remember how painful that is. And they're like, I don't want to re-experience that. I don't want to re-traumatize myself. So subconsciously they pull back. It makes sense, right? Being avoidant has nothing to do with whether someone intellectually craves or desires or wants contact. I want to make that really clear, because this might like save some broken hearts out there. Being avoidant has nothing to do with someone whether someone wants contact or desires contact, they're human, they want contact, they desire contact. It has to do with their attachment system. It has to do with these implicit memories and these traumas that occurred for them as children. It was so painful to ask for something you needed and then just have your needs not met. So over time, they don't even really know what needs are. They don't even know how to express them, how to ask for them. And it makes them uncomfortable when someone does try to meet their needs, which they often see you as weak when you have needs. Like they often have this sort of like complex of like, you're weaker than I am because you have needs and you need your needs met and I don't have those needs. And I think that's really interesting because there's sort of like a superiority. And what this does ultimately is it creates distance. It creates distance between the two of you, emotional distance for sure, and physical distance often, but it serves as an unconscious distancing tool and disconnecting strategy. And again, this is unconscious. They're not doing this consciously to push you away. They're doing it because they need some space. They need to breathe. They need to go auto-regulate by themselves. They don't know how to co-regulate with a partner. They never learned that. Their mom never taught them that. Their caretaker didn't. So when they feel emotional closeness, as I said, they're sort of like, better not do that. Better not even like open up that can of worms because I know where that can go and that's painful and I don't want to re-experience that. Why would you? They don't expect their needs to be met or seen or acknowledged or witnessed. Let me say that again. An avoidant attacher doesn't expect their needs to be met, seen, acknowledged, or witnessed in any way. And so when they do, I think it's often like, oh my God, that's incredible. And then I think there's a relief, and then I think there's a fear all at the same time. I think it creates relief and fear simultaneously, which is kind of like a disorganized reaction. But that's what I've witnessed personally in real time is when you meet an avoidance needs or you try to, it's like, oh my God, that feels so good. Like I'm seen, and oh my God, no one's ever done that. And then it's like, well, wait a second. There's also this thing with avoidance that's so interesting. Again, I think this is all subconscious where there's a signal cry, like nobody cares about me. No one's noticing me. And that was with my husband's business. Like no one's noticing, no one cares that I'm doing this. And it's like, well, no one's ever been there for me, but that's not really true. People have been there for him. People try to, like me and other people, right? Mentors, teachers, friends, you try. But that avoidant person keeps themselves locked up and you don't have the key. You're fumbling, trying to get the key to get in to try to figure them out, but you can't because ultimately they don't want to be figured out. I mean, they do on a very inherent level, but then subconsciously they have all these limiting beliefs about love and connection and what this means. And again, that at their core, if you've watched any of my other videos or you have an understanding of avoidance, they're defective at their core. So of course you're going to leave. So of course they're not good enough, right? They're defective. There's something wrong with them. They don't know how to maintain relationships. They don't know how to connect like other people do. They feel like they know something's off, but they're still going to try. They're still going to try to connect. They're still going to get married. They're still going to want families. They're still going to do all these things. And they're going to hope that you're different. And then you're not going to be different. And then they're just going to like, oh, well, that wasn't the one. They'll try it again. They'll keep throwing out, trying to catch the right fish. But the truth is that nobody's going to be the right fish for the avoidant until they're the right fish for themselves. Nobody is going to meet their needs because they're not meeting their own needs. They're not even acknowledging their own needs. In childhood, there was a lot more focus on what the avoidant did. I think I already mentioned this, but I'll mention it again, than who they were. Their accomplishments, their merits, the scholarships they got, the awards they got, their certificates, all of those things like, oh, you're so great. Or, maybe they got money when they got good grades. Like maybe they got to travel, they went on vacation. Maybe they had really good experiences. They would be like the kid in school that was always going on vacation and people were jealous of their life. And then if you really cracked the core, you got to the core of that person would tell you, that kid would tell you like, yeah, it looks great. Like we do all these fun things, but I can't talk to my parents or they don't really know me. Right. Or, it looks good on paper kind of a thing. I feel like with avoidance, it looks good on paper, their childhood. And again, like I said, there was a superiority with not needing, like you're weaker than me and therefore I'm better because I don't have needs. And when you do have needs, they're kind of annoying to the avoidant, especially if you disrupt their auto-regulation mode. Like let's say like they're having coffee and you just kind of barge in. I made this mistake many times in my marriage. I didn't know. I would go into anxious mode and want to immediately connect, when I woke up, and he was in his, own little like hermit shell, and he was usually very nice about it. And I never quite understood it though. It was like, you just give me a couple minutes, and that's great communication. So if you have a partner who's like, you notice they go into auto regulation, and you notice they kind of tune you out, or again, they're turning off their attachment system. You'll feel that too as the partner. You'll feel them pull away. You'll try to connect. You'll be sitting on the couch and you're like, wait a second, we're not even connecting, and they're the avoidance, like, what are you talking about? Like, and then the avoidant will say something like, well, I think we should sleep in separate bedrooms, or to have separate houses. And you're like, what? We're married. Like, there are major ways in which the avoidant will try to pull away to create safety. They're trying to create a safety net for themselves. Guys, this is what they had to do in childhood. So if your relationship becomes unstable or unsafe, they're going to try to pull away. The anxious is going to try to pull closer. So the avoidant's pulling away, the anxious is pulling them closer. And there's just this like friction that's constant. And eventually the avoidant may pull away altogether or just completely shut down. Remember that this avoidant adaptation survived by turning off the attachment system. Whereas the anxious adaptation survived by turning on the attachment system, the disorganized survived by turning it off and on and off and on intermittently. So understand that these are adaptations. These are survival mechanisms, guys. It's a survival experience for the avoidant. I hope this clarifies some things for you, especially those of you who have been hurt, like deeply wounded and hurt by a relationship with an avoidant. I'm a healing fearful avoidant, or AKA disorganized, and my husband, I actually think, is also healing or fearful avoidant, but definitely could lean dismissive, and I could lean dismissive or anxious. And I just hope that my videos help somebody. If my videos help save a relationship out there, even though I couldn't save my own because I wasn't aware at the time, I didn't have the tools, I didn't even know about attachment styles. It can be really confusing. And really, if you don't know about attachment styles, and if you're not both working towards becoming more self-aware, and basically you're both self-abandoning or sacrificing inside of that relationship to try to make it work, then I can't even imagine how that could work. You really have to be working together and having the tools. And also, I want to make a video about this, but there's a total misnomer that you have to go heal alone. No, we heal in connection, guys. And, I have clients that are single or going through breakups, and that connection can be with a therapist or a counselor, right? Or a coach. You can heal inside of that connection. It doesn't have to be with a romantic partner, but we don't heal separate and alone. That's why you see people who have been alone forever, like my husband and I, we were both like, we're great. We are so healed. We're going to knock this out of the park, this marriage. We had no idea. We healed to a certain degree alone, and then we needed to heal in connection. And unfortunately with an avoidant, the avoidant will often say, I need to go off and heal alone. I can't be in relationships. I don't do relationships well. I always mess up. Again, they have that defective core wound, which is really shame. And so there's nothing you can do. If that's what they believe, that's what they're going to believe. And they're going to seek out experiences that solidify that belief, just like we all do with all of our limiting beliefs. So that avoidant ultimately, it's so interesting. There's so much more I could say about that, but they will seek out the things that remind them that they're unworthy, just like we all will do with our insecure attachment styles. So until you decide you want something different, and you're done with having people walk all over your boundaries and your non-negotiables, and you're done basically with feeling pain and repeating the same cycle ad infinitum, then you will make a change. And then you will attract in you will become more secure. You'll attract insecure. Is ultimately the best pair up. If you're anxious or avoidant, your best pairing is with a secure person. Otherwise, two insecure attachment styles, it's really draining. It's really challenging. It can be done, but one person is probably going to have to give more than the other. And typically it'll be the anxious giving more and self-sacrificing more than the avoidant. It's just how it is. I'm not painting anyone good or bad. It's just the way it is. So ultimately, either you become secure and you attract secure, match made in heaven, or if you still, know that you're leaning secure, but maybe still a little avoidant, still a little anxious, go for that secure person. Learn to be attracted to a secure person, because it will change your life, I promise you. And again, I just want to remind everybody, these are adaptation styles. I know I've said this a lot throughout the video, but that's how we learn, through repetition. And let's not villainize avoidance. I'm really tired of seeing that on social media. Let's understand and accept that, yes, what they did was painful, but can you separate their actions from the person that they actually are? They are not the avoidant, they have an avoidant attachment style. They have an avoidant adaptation. Same with anxious, ambivalent, and same with disorganized. So let's spread some love and compassion for each other rather than throwing labels out there on everybody. And yes, it's painful, and I honor that and I acknowledge that so much. And let's also all just work to heal and become as loving as we can towards ourselves and then ultimately towards others. Thank you.